Welcome to Crafting Sound Meeting. It's March 18th, 2022. I'm Sonatina, and this is Linguistics You Can Use. Um, oh, sorry about this. So welcome. I was monitoring my sound output because there's unfortunately a little bit of construction going on in the wow. I was not prepared to go live, apparently. Thank you for joining me this week on March 18th. I am so excited to discuss linguistics and language and the world and how we all operate together in it based on how we talk to each other, the language we use, and how we use the language that we use, right? That's going to be, I think, actually what we're going to be discussing this week. So, what is it about how we use language that determines, right, what we mean in a moment? I thought about this in terms of the moment, right? When we are communicating with each other, we are generally doing it spontaneously, right? So, if you will, spontaneous, the word of the week, right? So, to begin our discussion on this word, can't help but bring out my beloved dictionary, well used and well loved through the years, following me from abode to abode. All right, as we get into the let's move over to the dictionary. All right, so we have spontaneous as our word for today that we're analyzing, and we're analyzing it in the nature of how we interact with each other on a day-to-day basis, right? Remember, crafting sound meaning. The name of this whole channel, this whole, effort is about how we create, how we craft meaning with each other. And with humans, right, our voice, the sounds we make, is one of, if not the primary way we tend to communicate with each other. So it is incumbent upon us, right? It is intensely important for us to learn and appreciate how different people, right, use the sound of their voice, how they use the sound of their language, how you use the sound of your language. It is so important. And as I'm bringing us to the word of the day, we do most of that spontaneously. Even when we prepare something, we tend to, in the moment, spontaneously decide how we're going to present. So let's take a look at that word. What is spontaneous? What is this word in our lives? So, a refresher, the dictionary that I'm currently reading from is from the 1990s. So it is quite out of date according to, right, our culture and stuff like that. Maybe according to like dictionaries, it's like fairly okay, but like there's some stuff in here that doesn't quite fit with our current understanding of some things. So anyway, but spontaneous, I think, probably doesn't have much of a change over this time period. Once I read this, we're going to go into the current definition that Merriam-Webster's gives on their dictionary. So, what do they say in this dictionary from the 90s? Spontaneous. It's an adjective. Arising from impulse, not suggested by another and not premeditated. Happening without external cause or control. growing without human intervention in the wild state. So, spontaneous seems to indicate that it is something that we don't spend time planning, right? We don't take a lot of effort. We don't take a lot of, what is it? We don't spend a lot of energy to think out what will come after that moment. Or something just happens, right? There's not time for thought, right? A spontaneous occurrence, right? If, you know, it has a lot, it feels very earthy, right? It feels very natural. Something happens and we have no control over it because it is a part of a process that we cannot understand, right? And that will lead us into maybe a little bit of the thought process on this word in a bit. But as you'll see, right, just because you can't see the process happening, just because I can't see it, just because nobody can see it, doesn't mean that there isn't potentially something that did premeditate that particular spontaneous moment or action or reaction. Arising from impulse, not suggested by another, and not premeditated. So just because something isn't thought through beforehand doesn't mean there aren't things that lead to it. Spontaneous doesn't mean random. It just means sudden. Does it mean sudden? Let's look at the dictionary online. So that I did read before I happened to have come on today on the channel. This one I'm looking along with you. So let's see what. All right, so we have spontaneous and we have ads. Oh, I gotta get some. Okay, it's an adjective still. That's good to know. Proceeding from natural feeling or native tendency without external constraint. Interesting. Arising from a momentary impulse. Controlled and directed internally. Produced without being planted or without human labor. Developing or occurring without apparent external influence, force, cause, or treatment. Not apparently contrived or manipulated. So we have other words that come from spontaneous. We have synonyms and antonyms and lots of information about it. But let's go back up to the definition because that's what we're working with today. Okay. So, oh goodness, I have to fix this. I would have left it alone, but because there's like an ad for crypto, I absolutely have to now change my thing real quick, and I apologize for taking time. Might have to. Okay, that'll be better. Okay. Okay. Let's I mean, I appreciate the need for advertisements and such, but like when it's going to be about um things like that, I can't. So, spontaneous. As we're seeing here in this lovely definition from the website, we have the sense that, oh, I apologize if you can hear this. I tried to tamp down, put on some filters, but somehow, apparently, a buzzsaw gets through a lot of different filters, and apologize. But anyway, so proceeding from natural feeling or native tendency without external constraint, arising from a momentary impulse, controlled and directed internally. This is the one that I particularly like. Developing or occurring without apparent external influence, force, cause, or treatment. We see this in the way that I was mentioning earlier, that spontaneous gives feelings to suddenness, right? That is an interesting word, actually, considering, we are exploring words, and that's another time, that's, because that's come up again in my way of describing this. I feel it kind of a good thing to take a moment and look at sudden. So I'm currently looking in my paper dictionary at the moment while we look at spontaneous, and let's see, right, if there's a connection between why I'm feeling these words have something to do with each other. So as I look and read sudden, it is also an adjective. Of a change or event which occurs without noticeable preparation. Unexpected. It is a noun as well. Only in the phrase all of a sudden. Suddenly, unexpectedly. So, it does seem to indicate, right, as we look at this, there we go. I'll figure out, how to do gestures eventually, but as we look at this website together and we think of spontaneous and sudden, right, both have this, sense of now, though they also indicate that there is something that led to the now. And that's where I wanted to bring us back to in terms of our conversation, because the way that we connect these kinds of concepts are how we connect with each other in a lot of ways, right? My making a connection with sudden from spontaneous might be very particular to me and my culture, my particular upbringing, right? So there's this game, that people play where they do, word association, and it's supposed to indicate, right, how you see the world. And it's not right, it's not wrong. It's not always correct. It's not always wrong. The connections that we make, right, from our minds based on how we perceive the world, right, have an impact on how we communicate with each other. So, developing or occurring without apparent external influence, force, cause, or treatment. I really appreciate, the people who write the dictionary take a lot of time to hone in on what they are trying to convey with this particular phrase. So, taken together, right, these 6 definitions of this one word spontaneous indicates, right, that it has many meanings for us in our world. And in that way, right, it can create different connections with different people in different ways. And because of that, we connect with each other in different ways. So what do you think, right? Spontaneous thoughts on your part about spontaneous, right? Is this a word that you feel encompasses your uh, outlook on conversation, right? What is it about spontaneous that feels exciting to you, but also what feels scary to you, right? The point of doing these explorations on how we understand language and how we understand words is to become better aware of ourselves and how we understand the world. It's always a, cyclical process. We look at a word, we see what the word feels to us, we look at why that word feels that way to us, and then we decide if we want to continue feeling that way towards that word, or perhaps we want to change the way that that word is perceived in the world. This is one of the things that happens in language, especially with slurs, right? As somebody from the queer community, that word has been used as a slur and as a sign of community, both at the same time, often. And the moment, right? It is a momentary impulse. The definition from spontaneous, right? We use the language that we use based on the experience we have of the feelings it brings up in us. Those spontaneous feelings, right? The suddenness of using a word. So, there's a lot of discussion in our culture right now, especially around this concept of cancel culture, canceling somebody because, oh, they slipped. Oh, they didn't mean it. It's just, the culture. It puts these things into us. And I always say, but it's your choice to examine what you allow from the culture into you. Yes, there is a sense of a lot of anger against certain groups of people in our society. We choose whether or not we engage with that in a positive or negative way, right? I have no interest whatsoever in using words that would make somebody else feel less than. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't feel it important to, put people down in that way. I prefer to, base my criticisms on ideas and how people act, right? The actions that people take to me are much more of a thing to discuss than almost anything, honestly. So the way we choose to act, right? When we do let some of the societal thoughts that inevitably have an impact on our thoughts, when we let them out, when they come out, and we choose whether or not to own it or disown it, right? That is the choice. That is the moment. Spontaneous mistakes happen, right? We do live in a culture that tries to, right, ingratiate us into using language that puts others down, especially those that, are already kind of at the bottom of society, right? Making fun of the lowest common denominator is sort of, especially an American pastime. But you don't have to agree that that's a part of your culture. And that's where I always come back to the choice of what you want to take from what is in the world now. Because there's all kinds of ways to be. Every single way that somebody wants to, kind of claim exists somewhere, I'm sure, right? There's a community out there for everybody. So to me, to say that you are a product of your environment is saying that you choose to just go along with things because you have no interest in examining why your environment is that way, or that you're comfortable with your environment and you actually like it that way, right? There's that sense of you're trying to distance yourself from these actual results of the life that we live. So, yeah, spontaneousness is life. We speak spontaneously. We don't always have great control over our thoughts. And often we do, well, not often, I can't say. Nobody can say how much or little somebody else does something, but we are a product of our culture. And we, as such, we, as somebody who understands that, needs to examine what a part of our culture do we want to be more a part of? Do we want to enhance and increase versus another part of our culture? There's always choices. We can always choose spontaneously, right? To move in a different direction, right? Coming to that idea, right? People, I often hear sometimes like, it's out of nowhere, right? It was just a decision out of nowhere. And I think that's almost never true, I feel. Right? Proceeding from natural feeling or native tendency without external constraint. Developing or occurring without apparent external influence, force, cause, or treatment. Apparent external influence. There's a there's a sense I've I've often felt in the culture that I was raised in, uh, that we aren't supposed to really show when we're struggling, right? Except for to a very narrow group of people, and even to them only in a limited way, so that you know we don't feel like a burden. That's the message that I received a lot from society and from my upbringing and all of that. And it doesn't even have to do with mostly with my family or with my immediate family, because like I didn't get a lot of that from my immediate family. But we are people who grow up in different circumstances, different places, different people have an influence on us. So while not a lot of people may have seen these things developing inside of me, this feeling of being a burden, right? All they saw was a collapse of exhaustion developing or occurring without external influence, force, cause, or treatment, right? And that's why we want to come back to the words, right? Spontaneous doesn't mean random. It it just means sudden. It means things are now visible. Um. Oh, I think everything froze for a second. Well, that's neat. Oh, my computer is trying to not be nice. I wonder if it's because of this. I feel like it's this ad. This ad is messing with my computer. Wow, that's not nice. Well, I guess I'm not going to use that particular problems. Yep. Oh, are we back? Oh, okay. That's fun. So, whatever that was, whatever that was, I'll probably cut it out, the final version. So, we were discussing spontaneous, right? That's the word of the day. And we were kind of coming to a conclusion. I'm frustrated. I don't know I don't know when the computer froze. And so, I'm just going to have to like go back a bit and talk about the deep feelings. Okay. So, let's bring it all together. Let's let's bring spontaneous and sudden and culture and all that stuff together in this nice little bow for a week. Spontaneousness, right, is not random. That's what we discovered from our analysis of these two dictionary sources. The suddenness of a reaction, right, the spontaneous explosion of somebody might feel random to somebody outside of the situation, i.e., the person, but inside, right, nobody knows how long that situation was developing. Right? Spontaneous is the external appearance of processes that potentially have been happening for quite a while. Earthquakes, volcanoes, asteroids, all of these spontaneous processes, all these spontaneous moments happen because of systems that have been in place and have been running for a long, long time. So that's the conclusion I want to bring us to today. We live in spontaneous moments. Those moments, though, are made up of vast amounts and layers of processes and systems that we have potential a right, a responsibility to examine and see if that's really the spontaneity that we want to bring to the world. Well, that's all the linguistics you can use for this week. I hope this sudden exploration on spontaneity helps you get out there and have some fun crafting sound meaning. And don't forget, you can always let me know if there's a particular area of language or culture or anything like that that you would like to craft some sound meaning around. And if you want to work with me one-on-one, you can also check out my website for classes and coaching and workshops and all of that stuff. So have a great week, and I will see you